So for today, we're going to be looking at quartiles and interquartile range. Quartile comes from quarter, so I'm going to break this into quarters. Now, if you think of a game, and I'm thinking of about a basketball game, about a football game, those games that are broken into quarters, right? There's the beginning of the game and all the way to the end. At the end of the game, we get the end of quarter four, right? That's when quarter four ends. That's when the game ends. Now, in the centered, people call it halftime. In the sports industry, they call it halftime. Now, when we're looking at this in quarters, isn't that the end of quarter two? Or when we talk about it in numbers only, we tend to call that median, right? We talked about median a couple of days ago. So median was how to put it in the center. Now, back in quarters, that's quarter two. Now, looking at the first half, I'm focused on this half. Looking at the first half, think, what happens at the middle of the first half? Isn't that the end of quarter one? Now looking at the second half, what happens at the middle of the second half? Isn't that the end of quarter three? So that's how you have your game broken into 4 quarters. That's the same thing we're going to be doing with our data. We're going to put our numbers from small to large, but we're going to break it into quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four. We're going to break it into quartiles, into quarter. Now, interquartile range, what I'm asking for that, I'm going to be asking what's quarter three minus quarter one. So what's quarter three minus quarter one? All right, let's take a look at that as an example. Looking at example number 9, let me start by putting my numbers in order from small to large. So I put my numbers in order from small to large. I want to see how many numbers I have. I can easily count them. I happen to have 15 of them. Now 15 is not an even number. To make it even, let me subtract 1 to make it even. So now I'm going to say that 14 divided by 2 is 7. So now I'm going to draw a line such that there's 7 numbers on each side of my line. So I drew my line. That's the median, or quarter two, or halftime if you're thinking that this is sports. So that's the one in the center. Now looking on the left of that line, I have 7 numbers. Now 7 is not an even number, right? 7 is not an even number, so I'm going to subtract 1 to make it even, and I'm going to divide this by 2, so I get 3. Now I'm going to draw a line such that I have 3 numbers on each side of my line, and that is what I called quarter one. Now on the right side, so I'm focused on this side, let me draw a line because I have 7 numbers. Right, 7 minus 1 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I'm going to draw a line such that I have 3 numbers on each side of my line. And that number is what I call quarter 3. Remember, the end of this list is quarter 4. So now I'm asking here, find the interquartile range for each data set. Remember I said I'm going to ask you guys, for that I'm asking what's quarter 3 minus quarter 1. I notice that quarter 3 is 12. Right? That quarter 3 goes through 12. Quarter 1 is 4. So I'm asking, what's 12 minus 4? My result should be 8. All right, let's take a look at example number 10. Let me make my numbers in order. Let me put my numbers in order from small to large. I notice I count how many numbers I have, and I count that there's 15 of them. 15 is not an even number. Let me subtract 1 to make it even. Now I know that 14 divided by 2 is 7. So I'm going to draw a line such that I have 7 numbers on each side. And that's my quarter 2 or median. So I have 7 numbers on each side. I'm looking at the left side. There's 7 numbers. 7 is not an even number. Let me subtract 1 to make it even. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I'm going to draw a line, right? There's 7 numbers. I'm going to draw a line such that I have 3 numbers on each side. And that is what I called quarter 1. Now, looking at the 7 numbers on the right side, I'm going to draw a line such that I have 3 numbers on each side of my line. And that is what I called quarter 3. So now the interquartile range, I'm asking what's quarter 3 minus quarter 1? Quarter 3 is 80.9 minus quarter 1 is 75.9. Use a calculator if necessary. 80.9 minus 75.9 happens to be 5. Don't think it's always a whole number. Sometimes we get decimals. Let's take a look at a couple more examples. Looking at my example number 11, let me put my numbers in order from small to large. Let me count how many numbers I have. It's easy to count the dots. I happen to have 16 of them. 16 is even. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So I'm going to draw a line such that I have 8 numbers on each side. So I have 8 numbers on each side, and this is my quarter 2, or median. So I have 8 numbers on the left. 8 is an even number, right? 8 divided by 2 is 4. So let me draw a line such that I have 4 numbers on each side of my line. And this is what I called quarter 1. Same thing here. Let me draw a line such that I have 4 numbers on each side. And that is what I called quarter 3. Now notice quarter 1, my line does not go through a number. In this case, it happens to go in between 2 numbers. So for me to find out quarter 1, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add those 2 numbers. And my result, I'm going to divide it by 2. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now for quarter 3, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add my 2 numbers. And my result, I'm going to divide it by 2. 7 plus 7 is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So now I'm ready to answer the interquartile range. Interquartile range is quarter 3 minus quarter 1. So I'm asking how much is 7 minus 4? And our result should be 3. Now looking at question number 12, I'm not focused on the numbers at the bottom. I'm focused on the numbers on the left. I want to see how high each of my bars go. Notice how the first graph goes up to 18. The second one goes up to 18. Then my third number goes up to 15. Notice it's in between 14 and 16. So we can easily get the numbers for each of my bars. Once we get the numbers, let's put them in order from small to large. So I put my numbers from small to large. Let me count how many numbers I have. I happen to have 14 of them. 14 is an even number. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So now let me break these 2. Let me draw a line such that I have 7 numbers on each side. So I drew a line and I have 7 numbers on each side. This is what we call median or quarter 2. Right? It's halftime of a game. What's the middle? All right, so I have 7 numbers on each side of my line. So I have 7 numbers here. 7 is not an even number. Let me subtract 1 to make it even. Now 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I'm going to draw a line such that I have 3 numbers on each side of my line. And that line I'm going to call quarter 1. Looking on the second half, I'm going to draw a line such that I have 3 numbers on each side of my line. That numbered is quarter 3. For my interquartile range, I'm asking what's quarter 3 minus quarter 1. Notice that my quarter 3, my line for quarter 3 goes through 18. So quarter 3 is 18th minus 14th. Right? Quarter 3 is 18, quarter 1 is 14. So I'm asking how much is 18 minus 14? And our result should be